Miranda was curled up on their big gray crate and barrel sofa, scrolling through her phone while the Netflix logo bounced silently across their 65-inch Samsung. David walked in, drying his hands on a kitchen towel, a smile on his face. "You know Tom from accounting? He was telling me about this new club downtown called Eclipse," he started, perching on the edge of the sofa. "Said the place is on another level. I was thinking we could go. Shake things up a bit." Miranda did not look up from her phone, just slowly shook her head. "Oh, David, please, not tonight. This week has just been brutal. I can feel a headache coming on." "We would not stay long," he pushed gently. "Just one drink. We can people watch. We have not gone out in ages. I'll get an Uber. You would not even have to think about driving." She finally looked up at him, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. "David, all I want to do was get under a blanket and binge the new season of that show we started. See, not we just order pizza and stay in, please?" Her voice was quiet, convincing. Any other night, he would caved instantly. But tonight, he craved motion, music, a life outside their comfortable bubble. He could feel their routine closing in on them, and he just wanted to break free. "Miranda, we turning into a boring, old married couple," he said with a soft smile. "One drink. Just one. I promise, if you want to leave after an hour, we out of there. No questions asked. We just need a change of scenery." He took her hand. Her fingers were cold. She was quiet for a long moment, looking from their joined hands to his hopeful face. She let out a heavy sigh, the sound of surrender. "All right," she caved. "Fine. You win. But 1 hour, that's it." "Promise," he said, his face lighting up. She slowly pushed herself off the sofa and walked toward the bedroom. He heard the closet doors slide open. A few minutes later, he glanced into the room. Miranda was standing in front of the full-length mirror, wearing only her underwear and holding a simple black dress. She was staring at her reflection, but her eyes were blank, distant. It was like she was not seeing herself, or the dress, or anything else in the room at all. Her mind was somewhere else entirely. A black Cadillac Escalade pulled up silently to the curb. The club's dark brick facade was marked only by a discreet, cursive neon sign, Eclipse. A massive bouncer in a perfectly tailored suit stood guard by a velvet rope, not checking IDs, just sizing up the guests, deciding who was worthy. David felt a little out of his element, but the bouncer just gave them a silent nod and unclipped the rope. Inside, a deep, pulsing beat enveloped them. The music was loud but clean, without the tinny rattle of cheap speakers. The whole space was bathed in a dim, blue and purple haze, cut by thin laser beams. The air smelled of lime, gin, and expensive perfume. The crowd matched the vibe. Men in designer shirts, women in cocktail dresses. Tom was not kidding, David thought. This place was the real deal. Miranda stuck close to David, her fingers digging into his forearm. She scanned the room with a tense, almost hunted look on her face. They found a small table against the wall, and David offered to get the drinks. The long, polished marble bar was packed. When they finally caught the bartender's eye, a young guy with a sharp haircut, he looked straight at Miranda and smiled. "The usual Miranda? French 75? He asked, his voice cutting easily through the music. David shot a surprised look at his wife. Miranda just gave a tight laugh. "Wow, what a memory. We came here once like a year ago, with some friends," she said quickly. "Yeah, that sounds perfect, thanks." David ordered an old-fashioned. Her explanation seemed plausible, but something about it felt off. Miranda practically downed her first cocktail. After the second, the tension began to melt off her shoulders. A spark lit up in her eyes. When the DJ dropped a killer track, she grabbed David's hand and pulled him onto the dance floor. And that's when she transformed. David had never seen her like this. At home, she might sway gently to some music, but here she moved with an incredible fluidity and energy. Her moves were bold, polished, almost professional. She was not just dancing, she was owning the floor, drawing eyes from all around. David felt a pang of pride mixed with a strange sense of detachment, like he was watching a beautiful stranger. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the same bouncer from the entrance, now guarding the ropes to the VIP section. His eyes met Miranda's, and the man gave her a subtle but respectful nod. It was the kind of nod you do not give a customer. It's the kind you give to someone who belongs. Suddenly, the music dipped, and a smooth voice boomed from the speakers. "Charlotte, how we feeling tonight?" The crowd roared back. "We got a full house, but I want to give a special shout-out to the woman who makes this place shine. Make some noise for the star of Eclipse, the one and only Miranda." A bright spotlight shot across the room and froze right on her. For a split second, she was paralyzed, the smile sliding off her face, a flicker of panic in her eyes. David just stared at her. The music swelled back up, but he could not hear it over the ringing in his own ears. All he could see was her face, trapped in that blinding light. He mouthed the words, "What was that?" Miranda snapped out of it instantly. She let out a loud, almost hysterical laugh, shouting over the beat. "It's just a thing they do. They just pick someone from the crowd. It is so dumb, right? Simon, I need another drink." Her explanation was too fast, her laugh too loud. David let her lead him off the dance floor, but the small seed of confusion in his gut had just started to grow into a heavy, cold suspicion. The heavy SUV door swung shut with a solid thud, sealing them off from the Charlotte nightlife. The pulsing beat of Eclipse was instantly replaced by an almost total silence, broken only by the quiet hum of the engine and the hiss of tires on asphalt. David turned to the window, watching the city lights streak by. Every glowing mannequin, every red light, felt alien and meaningless. The MC's voice was still ringing in his head, the star of the club, the one and only Miranda. The silence in the car grew thick, oppressive. David had no intention of breaking it. He could feel the questions churning in his gut like stones, but he was not going to let them out. Not yet. Miranda was the first one to break. She slid closer to him on the cool leather seat. "David," she began, her voice deliberately cheerful. "Thank you for tonight. Really." He just turned his head toward her, silent. "I was being such a drag, being so stubborn," she went on, taking his hand. Her palms were warm and a little damp. "But the night turned out to be magical. You were totally right, I needed this. We needed this, just to shake things up." She rested her head on his shoulder. Her hair smelled like hairspray and club smoke. David did not move. He could feel the tension in her body despite her relaxed pose. Every word sounded rehearsed, like a line from script. "You are the best husband in the world," she whispered, lifting her head to look him in the eyes. In the dim light of the car, her pupils were huge. "You always know what I need, even when I do not know it myself, and act like a brat. I'm sorry for how I was earlier." "It's fine, Miranda," he said, his voice flat and distant. "No, it's not," she insisted, pressing her body against his, her fingers tracing his cheek. "I love you so much, David, more than anything." She pulled his face toward hers and kissed him. It was a quick, demanding kiss that left no room for a response. It was not a kiss of tenderness. It was a statement designed to shut down the topic and erase any doubt. David let her kiss him. He even managed a weak smile when she pulled away. But inside, he felt nothing. Her words, her touch, her declarations, it was all like bright, shiny tinsel draped over something ugly and rotten. Her sweet lies were not calming his nerves. They were like gasoline being poured on the smoldering embers of his suspicion. The car turned onto their quiet street and pulled into the driveway. The moment the engine cut, Miranda immediately pulled away from him, all her affectionate energy gone. "Finally home," she said, her voice now holding a brisk, all-business tone. They walked inside in silence. Before David had even closed the front door, she had kicked her heels off in the middle of the hallway. "That's it. I'm exhausted. I'm going to shower and go straight to bed." She tossed over her shoulder, not even looking at him. "Good night." He stood alone in the entryway, listening to her footsteps fade down the hall. A minute later, he heard the shower turn on. David stared at her high heels, tossed carelessly on the welcome mat. In the ringing silence of the house, the sight of them felt like all the proof he needed. The sound of the shower had long since faded. A deep, almost tangible silence settled over the house. David sat at the kitchen table, staring into the darkness. Sleep would not come. Every time he closed his eyes, the same image flashed in his mind. Miranda's face caught in the spotlight, her smile fake and terrified. He could not ignore the questions drilling into his brain any longer. He grabbed his MacBook Air from the counter, sat down, and flipped it open. The bright glare of the screen stung his eyes, making him squint. The cool aluminum of the case felt cold against his fingers. He opened Chrome and, after a second's hesitation, typed into the search bar, Eclipse Club Charlotte. The first link was the official site. The homepage was slick and dark, flashing with professional photos of beautiful, laughing people. Everything looked expensive, respectable. His eyes scanned the menu. About Us menu reservations. He stopped on Gallery. His heart started beating a little faster. The page was filled with dozens of photo albums from past parties, all sorted by date. Gold Rush Saturday, Neon Nights, Temptation Fridays. Methodically, he started clicking through the albums from the last few months, scrolling through hundreds of photos. Smiling faces, dancing couples, champagne glasses. No Miranda. For a second, a wave of relief washed over him. Maybe he had imagined it all. Maybe it really was just a stupid gimmick and the rest was just paranoia. He was about to close the laptop, but his hand moved on its own, clicking on an album from a month ago titled Midnight Circus. The first few photos were standard, but the fifth one made him freeze. His blood ran cold. The photo was shot from a low angle. In the center of the frame, a woman was dancing inside a large metal cage suspended from the ceiling. She was wearing nothing but a black leather harness and a few strips of fabric. It was Miranda. Her body was coiled to the beat, a predatory, unfamiliar smile on her lips. He enlarged the image. There was no doubt. That was his wife. His breath hitched. He frantically clicked back to the main gallery page. Next to the photos section was one he demissed, videos. He clicked. Most of the clips were short, professionally edited promos. But one stood out. It was shot vertically on a phone and titled Eclipse Behind the Scenes. He hit play. The quality was terrible, the sound muffled. The camera showed a hallway off the main floor. 3 people walked out of the door. In the center was his Miranda. She was laughing, throwing her head back. On either side of her were 2 men in expensive suits, their hands on her waist. Without a hint of secrecy, the trio turned down a narrow corridor under a dim red sign that read Private Suites. David stopped the video. He stared at the frozen image on the screen for a few more seconds. There was nothing on his face, no anger, no pain, just a complete void. Then, calmly, with one precise movement, he shut the lid of the laptop. The sharp clap of the impact echoed in the dead silent house, as loud as a gunshot, and the kitchen was plunged back into total darkness. Friday morning started like any other. David's alarm went off at exactly 6:30. He shut it off before the melody could wake Miranda. He showered, made coffee in the Keurig, and put some bread in the toaster. Miranda appeared in the kitchen 20 minutes later, sleepy, wrapped in her silk robe. "Morning," she said, kissing his cheek. "Morning," he replied, handing her a mug of coffee. His voice was steady calm. He watched her add cream to her coffee, complain about her 9 o'clock meeting, scroll through emails on her phone. She was his wife. She looked like his wife, talked like his wife, and moved like his wife. But to him, she had become a stranger, a convincing imitation that he was now merely observing. The emotional connection between them had been severed the moment he slammed the laptop shut. All that was left was habit and a plan that was slowly taking shape in his mind. "Do not forget dinner with your parents tonight," she reminded him, applying lip gloss in the hallway mirror. "I remember," he said. He kissed her before he left for work. It felt like kissing a marble statue. For the rest of the day, and all through the next, he played his part perfectly. He discussed mortgage rates with her. He laughed at her jokes at dinner with her parents. On Saturday morning, they went grocery shopping together at Publix. That afternoon, he mowed the lawn while she took a call in the backyard, laughing quietly. He could see her, but he did not try to listen. He was not interested in who she was talking to anymore. He was not looking for more clues. He had everything he needed. He was just waiting. The moment came Saturday evening. They were sitting in the living room, some random movie playing on the TV. "What should we do for dinner?" he asked casually. Miranda suddenly sat up, as if remembering something. "Oh shoot, I totally forgot," she said, tapping her forehead. "My mom called earlier. Her internet is out again, and she is totally lost. She asked me to come by and check the router. I told her I'd swing by tonight." The excuse was simple, mundane. "Perfect. Yeah, no problem," David said, his eyes fixed on the screen. "Go ahead." "Thanks, sweetie. I'll be quick in and out." She got up and walked into the bedroom. David stayed in the living room, but he was not watching the movie anymore. He was listening. He heard the water start running in the bathroom. A shower. To go fix her mom's router. He smirked to himself. Half an hour later, she emerged. She was wearing an elegant, dark blue dress he'd never seen before. Her hair was done, her makeup heavier than usual. When she bent over to grab her purse, the hem of her dress rode up just enough for David to see the top of a black lace stocking. That was not lingerie for a family visit. She walked over and gave him a quick kiss. She smelled of Tom Ford's Black Orchid. "Do not miss me too much. I'll try to be back soon," she cooed. "Drive safe," he replied, his voice even. He watched her walk to the door. She gave him a little wave, and then she was gone. The lock clicked shut. David sat in the silence for another minute, staring at the empty hallway. Then he calmly stood up, turned off the TV, and walked to the bedroom to get changed. The wait was over. David walked into Eclipse and melted into the shadows of the dance floor, stopping by a pillar with a perfect view of the center of the room. There, inside a large suspended cage flooded with blue and red light, a woman was moving. Her naked body coiled to the beat, long hair whipping across her back. Below, a crowd of men cheered and roared. David watched her, his wife, and felt nothing but a ringing emptiness. The image from the website had come to life, and it was the final piece of the puzzle falling into place. He watched in silence for another minute as she blew a kiss to the crowd, then turned and walked decisively toward the bouncer by the private rooms. "I need a room," David said, "and I want you to send Miranda to me." He waited for her on the velvet sofa, his face hidden behind a simple black mask. A thick envelope of cash sat on the table in front of him. 5 minutes later, the door opened quietly. There she was, in the dim light. She saw the silhouette of a man in a mask. A client. She smoothly closed the door behind her, a practiced, alluring smile appearing on her face. She moved slowly into the center of the room, her hips swaying to the muffled music coming through the walls. Her eyes expertly sized up the man, then settled on the envelope. It was thick, very thick. "So, am I just dancing for you tonight?" she asked. Her voice was lower now, with a husky quality he'd never heard at home. The man in the mask did not answer. He just slowly tapped his finger on the envelope. The message was clear. A confident smile played on her lips. This was going to be an easy job. "For this kind of money, I'll do anything," she purred. "But I'll start with the best part." She moved closer. In the dim light, her dark blue dress shimmered like water at night. With the grace of a predator, she knelt before him on the plush carpet, the silk of her dress rustling. She looked up at his masked face, and her perfectly manicured fingers went confidently to his belt buckle. Her movements were fluid, polished to perfection, full of the beautiful confidence of a professional who knew her worth. She unzipped his pants. At that moment, while she was completely absorbed in her work, his hand calmly rose to his face. He slowly pulled off the mask. She did not notice at first, but when she lifted her gaze to meet the clientess' eyes, her practiced smile froze and shattered, replaced by a raw, animal terror. Sitting in front of her was David. She was petrified, unable to move or make a sound. He looked down at her, and his voice was quiet when he spoke. "You never did that for me at home. Is that because I was not paying you, darling?" Her eyes filled with tears, swimming with fear and a silent plea. She just stared up at him. He leaned a little closer. "You should be said something," he said, his voice void of sympathy, dripping with sarcasm. "I would VE paid you, of course. I can explain everything. she finally managed to force out in a choked whisper. He smirked. "How are you going to explain it?" "Your mouth is a little busy right now," he said, his gaze heavy and merciless. "Besides, you have not earned your money yet." His hand came down on the back of her head, guiding her without malice but with undeniable intent back toward him. She flinched, instinctively pulling away from his touch, her eyes wide with panic. He removed his hand, a crooked smile on his lips. "What's wrong? Do not want any more?" he asked quietly. "Got a headache?" He stood up, zipping his pants and straightening his shirt. Miranda remained on her knees on the floor. "Take the money," he said, nodding at the envelope. "It's your severance package. It's the last thing you'll ever get from me." David turned and walked to the door. Just before leaving, he stopped without turning around. "When you get home, the divorce papers will be on the table." He walked out, not looking back, and closed the door firmly behind him. Miranda was left alone in the silence of the expensive room, on her knees, next to the money for a job she never finished. Miranda got home around 3 in the morning. She quietly turned the key in the lock, hoping David was asleep, hoping she'd have time to think of something to find the right words. But when she walked in, the living room was brightly lit. David was sitting in an armchair, perfectly calm, as if waiting for a business associate. On the coffee table in front of him was a neat stack of papers and a pen. He did not look at her as she entered, his gaze fixed straight ahead. She froze in the doorway. Her club dress now looked cheap and out of place under the warm light of the lamp. Her makeup was streaked from silent tears in the cab. When she saw the documents on the table, she knew this was not a bluff. It was over. Desperation washed over her. She rushed toward him and collapsed at his feet, clutching his jeans. "David, please, do not." Her voice was a strangled whisper. "It was a mistake. A stupid, horrible mistake, I know." He was silent. His silence was worse than any scream. "Forgive me. I'm begging you, forgive me," she pleaded, looking up at him, her face wet with tears. "What you saw, I'll never do it again. Not with anyone. You hear me? Never again. Only with you. I'll do it just for you if you want. Anything. Please, do not throw our life away." She broke down sobbing, burying her face in his knees. Then, for the first time, he spoke. His voice was quiet and completely devoid of emotion, like a newscaster reading a teleprompter. "It's too late, Miranda." He gently removed her hands from his leg, stood up, and walked to the window, turning his back to her. "You did not make a mistake. You made a choice. Over and over again. The only difference is that tonight, your little business venture got shut down." He looked at her reflection in the dark glass. "You can get your things tomorrow when I'm not here. Sign the papers and leave the keys on the table." With that, he left the room and walked into the bedroom, closing the door firmly behind him. The click of the lock sounded like the final rap of a gavel. Miranda was left alone in the middle of the brightly lit living room, kneeling on the same rug where they had been picking out a movie just the night before. Her pleas hung in the air, having shattered against the wall of his final decision. 1 year later, the divorce was fast and quiet. Miranda did not contest it or demand any assets, knowing she had no leverage. She signed the papers in silence. The first thing David did after she collected her things was call a locksmith and have every lock in the house replaced. The sound of the new key turning in the deadbolt felt like a period at the end of a long, ugly sentence. He did not grieve for long. The shock of betrayal quickly gave way to a cold relief, as if a diseased, rotting part of his life had been surgically removed. 3 months later, at a friend's birthday party, he met Sarah, an architect with a clear, honest gaze and a calm smile. Their relationship had no drama, no secrets. 6 months after that, she moved her things into his house. The quiet evenings were once again filled with comfort, and on weekends, the kitchen smelled of coffee and apple pie instead of the stale scent of lies. Miranda's fate was different. The money she made at Eclipse, including that last envelope from David, ran out in a couple of months, spent on a small apartment and expensive drinks at bars. She started drinking, first in the evenings to fall asleep, then in the morning to quiet the thoughts in her head. She was fired from Eclipse a month after the divorce. She started showing up to work with a puffy face and dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. Her polished, beautiful movements lost their precision and fire, and her eyes held a cloudy emptiness. One night, she simply passed out in the dressing room and missed her set. It was her last day at the club. She tried to find work at other, less reputable places on the edge of town, but her reputation preceded her. She'd miss shows, get into fights with customers. Her beauty, her greatest asset and her only commodity, was fading fast under the onslaught of alcohol and despair. The last time one of the old bartenders from Eclipse saw her, she was working the night shift at a Circle K gas station. Her hair was pulled back in a limp ponytail, the red corporate polo hanging off her thinning frame. She sold him a coffee, staring past him with empty, exhausted eyes, and did not even recognize him. Her entire past life, the glamour of the spotlights and the rustle of cash, had been traded for the hum of fluorescent lights and the smell of gasoline. And that's where today's story ends. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoyed it, do not forget to like and comment. We'd love to discuss this story with you. See you in the next video.